I don't think I need an introduction to show you guys what we're installing today, but I am extremely excited to install this. I know that some of you guys are not a big fan of the steering wheel yoke or big fans of the way Tesla does things, but you have to admit that this is one badass product. Not only from the build quality, but the way it looks, because it actually matches the OEM look to the Tesla steering wheel, but also the materials they have used. This is premium Napa leather. The steering wheel feels great. It's heavy, it's got weight. The buttons are super clicky. They have the arrows that light up, which I think it's really cool. And most importantly, everything is pre-assembled for you to just install it and call it a day. If you guys know me, you guys know that my Tesla currently has a yoke steering wheel. This is an aftermarket steering wheel that I purchased a while back, and I absolutely adore the yoke steering wheel. Contrary to what people may tell you, I absolutely love my steering wheel. However, there are different benefits to owning this one, so I will go ahead and go through the full installation process. We're gonna go ahead and take the other one off and install this one. Huge shout out to Tesstudio for actually adding every single thing into the steering wheel and building it themselves. That way we don't have to do it. I think this is a great thing for those of you guys that are trying this for the first time. Looking at the back of the steering wheel, you have two little holes. That's what your screw is gonna go into to make sure that you are able to pry the metal part open, and that way you can take your airbag off. There's no screws holding the airbag, it's just clipped on by some metals. Both steering wheels and even the original steering wheel has the same exact mechanism, so you will do this process every single time you try to replace your steering wheel. And before starting this, I would recommend to turn your Tesla screen off, going onto safety, scrolling all the way down and putting turn off screen. That way you can work with a little bit more comfort that the airbag is not gonna deploy in your face. This is actually not gonna happen, but just be careful. As mentioned, using the screwdriver that Tesstudio provides, make sure that you are able to pry open the airbag. As you guys can tell, as soon as you pry that metal clip out, your airbag will automatically push forward to come out. Do keep in mind that there's 3 clips in total, one on the left side, one on the right side, and one on the bottom side. The bottom side usually is the hardest, and sometimes you need 2 of the same prying tool to pry them out at the same time so that bottom clip can come out. Once all the 3 clips are out, all you have to do is pull forward, be gentle, as there are 2 main cables that are holding the airbag. One manages everything that's on the right portion of your steering wheel, and the other one manages everything that's on the left hand side of your steering wheel. So make sure you disconnect them both. Just be careful, take your time, and have common sense. I quickly want to point out that the screen came on and off as I was messing with the car. Just be careful, keep turning the screen off, and right before disconnecting both of these cables, make sure that the screen is completely off. This next part is crucial to the installation of the steering wheel. Make sure you disconnect this accordingly. Do not pressure too much. Just there are 2 clips that you would have to disconnect and then pull towards you. Do not pull by the cables, and I would highly recommend for you guys to get tweezer pliers rather than doing what I'm doing. Hey, we have the first one off. Now the airbag is able to come out fully. Be sure to put it somewhere safely. Do not just drop it. Just put it somewhere where you're not gonna be messing with it. Keep in mind that you're gonna be using this exact same airbag for the next steering wheel, so make sure there's no scratches and take care of it. Next, be sure to remove the second portion of the connections. Remember, I told you there are 2. This one controls everything that's on the left side of your steering wheel. So anything that has to do with the movement of the steering wheel itself or the side mirrors. So you do not want to mess this one out too. Again, I highly recommend for you to get tweezer pliers rather than doing what I'm doing. Right after you disconnect this particular cable, you are able to put this to the side, because now you get to test out how strong you are. Yes, this is why I would prefer for you to have somebody else with you helping you. Do not be like me. The reason behind this is because you need somebody to hold the steering wheel while you're pulling left to make sure that the screw unbolts from the main column. If you don't have somebody, you need to have something holding that steering wheel so that way you're not pulling and have the steering wheel moving around, because you could damage components, or worse, you could hurt yourself. After giving it a good pull, I was able to remove the screw. This is an 8.8 bolt, and it's a very heavy one. You will be using the same exact bolt for the new installation, so make sure you keep that with you. My steering wheel was pretty loose, so it wasn't hard to take off, but if yours seems stuck, just give it a quick punch on each side and it'll come off. Before installing and comparing, I simply want to admire and acknowledge how beautiful this setup is. I mean, you are looking at some Iron Man over here. This looks like it's from a sci-fi movie. So cool. Comparing both steering wheels, and you can absolutely tell the main differences between one and the other one. First is I absolutely love the carbon fiber option on this one and the white look, as well as the carbon fiber on the side and the beautiful and impeccable stitching on the Napa leather. This is such a nice steering wheel to look at and to hold. It's got rounded edges, it's very soft, and it's very clicky and very sturdy and well made. You feel really good driving with this one. Looking at Teststudio's newest one, and you can absolutely tell that there's been some Tesla influence on this one. I definitely feel like the rounded edges feel a little bit better, but who knows, maybe I'll get used to this one. I do like the Tesla look, and I love how clean and well, how OEM it looks compared to the other one. It looks like it came with the car, and if you guys know me, I enjoy seeing my car having aftermarket products that look OEM. One thing that I'm highly impressed about is the fact that there's absolutely no shown stitching on this one and everything's wrapped in leather. There's no exposed plastic, there's no exposed stitching, and I think that's a really, really nice attention to detail. Not that I care how it looks from the rear, but it's nice to know that it's there. Looking at both steering wheels side to side, and I can absolutely tell that the black one just seems a little bit larger than the white one, and I think that's because the edges are not rounded off, they're almost squared off, which I think is an interesting design choice for this one because I think it just makes it look a little bit bigger than the other one. I don't think this is something to be too concerned about, but I wonder how the steering radius will be whenever you're turning with this one versus the white one. Before we continue, I just simply want to acknowledge how beautiful both of these steering wheels are and how fun it is that we're talking about yoke steering wheels in 2025. I do appreciate how design cues and technology has advanced for us to be able to drive what feels like go-karts. I think this is really, really cool. I also want to point out that having an aftermarket steering wheel versus what looks like an OEM steering wheel changes nothing on me. I think both of these steering wheels are completely amazing and beautiful on their own right and on their own design cues. Before installing the new steering wheel, we must remove the heating component from the old steering wheel. Remember, your steering wheel has a heating element that allows the steering wheel to warm up in cold weather, such as right now. To achieve this and have access to the element component, we must remove 4 little screws. 2 that are on the bottom, 1 on the upper left hand side and 1 on the upper right hand side. Once we remove this, we are able to pretty much pry that whole carbon fiber cover from the steering wheel and get access to the heating components. Once you have removed all the screws, you can either get a prying tool or use brute force like I'm doing to remove the casing from the steering wheel. And keep in mind that Tesstudio gives you all the tools necessary to remove every single screw that's on the steering wheel. So with one of the screwdrivers that it's provided by Tesstudio, you're able to remove the heating component. It's just a little black box on the bottom portion that's connected to a blue or purple connection. Unclipping the heating element is just as easy as, well, unclipping the heating element. And there you have it. This is literally what warms up your hands when you're cold. One thing that I will point out is that you must use the new encasing provided by Tesstudio to put the heating element into the new steering wheel. Otherwise, it will not fit. Don't worry, this is just being held up by clips and it's very easy to do. The little black case is being held up by force clips. All you have to do is pry those open gently, get the motherboard out and insert it into the new casing. And that's it. And I don't know, but for some reason while I was working on this, I don't know why I got the funny sensation that I was working on a Game Boy Advance and I was literally putting a cartridge into the Game Boy, which I thought it was funny. I felt like I was playing Donkey Kong for some reason. Once you remove the little black case, you can see how this looks exactly like a Game Boy. There's a ton of information that pretty much tells the steering wheel that you're cold and you need to get warm at some point. That's all it does. Or does it? Next, you're gonna get the cartridge and add it to the new box. Before inserting this into the new steering wheel, be sure that everything is fastened. All the clips are fastened together. That way this doesn't open when you're inserting it. There is a very tight space to add this to. So just be careful, but do have a little bit of pressure when putting it in. Once you put it in, that's all you have to do. Put the cables aside and you're ready for the next step. I want to point out 2 things. 1, I will not reply to any comments regarding my pajamas. And 2, Be sure that your steering wheel is not tilted like mine. As you guys can tell, I was having tremendous issues installing it because I could not figure it out. The steering wheel only has one weight that it will go in. There is a little lump that will give you guidance to put it in. However, it is easier if your steering wheel is completely straight. So be sure to do that before you remove anything. And we are pretty much just gonna go backwards. We're gonna connect our purple connection first, and then once we clip that, we're gonna go ahead and install our 8.8 bolt to it and tighten it as much as we can. Remember, this is the main part that holds the steering wheel to the column, so we need to make sure that this is tight accordingly. Before installing the airbag, I do want to make sure that the left hand side of the steering wheel works accordingly. Don't worry, I don't think the car will throw you any error messages or anything. I didn't get any error messages. I was simply just testing out to make sure that the buttons work before I added the airbag. Alrighty, we're almost done, guys. Now we're gonna gently connect the airbag to the steering wheel. I don't know why I get so afraid of this, but be sure you turn off your screen before you connect it. I almost forgot, but then I reminded myself I don't want this to blow up on my face. Once you hear those two clips going in, you are ready to set your airbag in full. This is the best feeling ever because I get to honk inside my own garage and not worry about anybody telling me anything. Just out of pure habit, I went ahead and decided to restart the system to make sure that all controls and everything are installed and everything is according to how the car was before. It's just a habit. You don't need to do this, but I just do it, like I said, out of a habit. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. What a beautiful look this is. I do believe that the white one had more of a pop color to it as it was white, but I think this just brings it all together much better. I will tell you that the airbag stands out just a tiny bit more, which I think it's interesting, but this is nothing that I'm too concerned about. What I am more concerned about is how it handles and how it feels while I'm driving. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, it seems like we're finally done with our steering wheel, with our Yoke steering wheel. I think this is great. I love the color, I love the texture, I love how sturdy it feels. And one thing that I do want to point out is that comparing it to the current one that I had, if I put my finger in the middle and act like this is the main holder, when you're turning this particular steering wheel, notice how high the ending holding up portion goes. So that always felt sort of unnatural, and every time I was turning, it just felt like it was just going up and up and up and up and up. So that part doesn't feel natural. Well, with the new one, I think because the bottom portion is so much more lower on this one, I think that's what causes this to pretty much go all the way up when you're turning. They were trying to replicate this just like your standard steering wheel, which is great and all, but because this is a yoke, it just doesn't feel quite as natural. I think with the new one, I think they did fix that particular issue because the bottom portion is not quite as low. So it does sit a little bit higher, and when you're turning, it feels almost like you're grabbing a rounded off steering wheel rather than a yoke. So that does feel a lot more natural. Aside from that, I did love the way it looked inside the car. I think the white definitely made a huge impact to the car. I'm speaking about this one, and the carbon fiber is well gonna be missed. But one thing that I wanted to say is that the rounded corners really made a huge difference on this one. They feel so much more comfortable. This one has almost like flat or squared out corners, and so it just feels like you're grabbing something else, not a steering wheel. So it feels weird, but it doesn't take long to get used to. Another thing that I wanted to point out is that with the carbon fiber in place, you are no longer able to see the pointers to each side. These are these little pointers that light up at night, and they just made the steering wheel look that much better. Unfortunately, because this is carbon fiber, you pretty much get a full circle of the LED that's happening behind it. It doesn't look quite as nice. It looks kind of weird, so I always had it off. New one, I remember that I have those lights available, and it actually makes the car look that much nicer. I think the main difference between this aftermarket steering wheel and this aftermarket steering wheel that I have next to me is that this one looks like it came with the car. It looks OEM. The airbag does throw me off a little bit, but not to the point where I'm too stressed out. It does sit a little bit higher from the Yoke steering wheel, so you do have a little gap on the side, but it's nothing that you can't get used to. It actually makes it easier to honk, which I think it's a great thing. That being said, guys, this has been an absolute pleasure to do for you guys. It took me a lot longer than I thought. because I just didn't have the right tools or the right help. So I ended up winging it myself, but it actually looks really, really nice. I hope this installation and review help you guys decide on which steering wheel you guys want, because you have your rounded options and you have your yoke options, and there's a ton of them. So I hope this gives you a bit of an idea of what to choose and how to choose it, and some of the pros and cons of owning one of these Yoke's steering wheels. With that being said, I wanted to give a huge shout out to Tesstudio for sponsoring this video and providing us with this beautiful steering wheel. And I wanted to thank you guys for always supporting the channel. With that being said, if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments. Use my discount code C3SGarage for a huge discount on one of these ones and any other accessories that you want for your Tesla. I'll see you guys in the next one.